once again to Real Shame, a show where the two of us talk about our list of movie blind spots. My name is Andy.
And I'm Adam.
And today, this week, actually, we're talking about a pair of Johnny Depp films. But before we dive into our Johnny Depp, our JD film today, we always like to start off Monday's episodes talking about what we've been watching lately. So, Adam, what have you been watching lately?
I've been watching a couple of things. I watched The Lincoln Lawyer with Matthew McConaughey.
All right.
And it was good. Have you seen this?
I've not seen it.
All right, Lincoln Lawyer is pretty good. It's a recent film as part of what I heard some people dub as the McConaissance. You know, the Renaissance from Matthew McConaughey.
I think that's a reach.
I
don't like that title.
A cool portmanteau for you guys.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we watched The Game. This was a film that Kirby's never seen. Mm-hmm. And that is one of the first movies that was directed by David Fincher. And it was pretty good. It still kind of holds up and all that kind of stuff. No, it does not hold up?
I've never been a big fan of The Game.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is just too far-fetched?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. It is.
It's ridiculous.
It is. And then I know we did this movie a while back, or we talked about the predecessor to these movies, but we talked about the Da Vinci Code a couple weeks ago, and I said I wanted to follow up with the other movies that came out, so I ended up watching Angels and Demons and Inferno of those. They're not as good as the Da Vinci Code. Angel and Demons is pretty all right. I think I've seen it before, so it wasn't that surprising. Inferno is just rough because I think the premise of it is like, what if Robert Langdon can't be Robert Langdon? So like for Inferno, he basically has like short-term amnesia for the first part of it, so he can't do all that mystery solving, all those puzzle stuff, and they pair him up with someone that's doing all that for him, and like the idea sounds cool. Like, what if we take away like it's like Superman, you know, what if we give him like he decides to give away his powers and stuff like that, but it doesn't work as well, I think, in this movie. Yeah. And even though the idea is cool, I just don't think it just works very well as an idea, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. But that's what I've been watching. Now over to you. What have you been watching?
So, I don't remember exactly when it was, but I know in a previous episode we mentioned that we had watched the McCartney 321.
Yep.
So I had like an episode to go on that. I finished watching that, and that made me want to watch some other music documentaries. So I went down that road. First, I watched 8 Days a Week, which is the Ron Howard documentary about the Beatles' touring years.
I've not seen that.
Hulu. It's pretty good. I mean, I can watch anything related to the Beatles.
Yeah.
It's all good to me. So that was pretty cool. Then I watched George Harrison, Living in the Material World, which is a documentary that Martin Scorsese did. It's very long. It's on HBO Max. I mean, I didn't mind it being long. It's got a wealth of information there. But that's on HBO Max, and because it was Scorsese, I was like, I want to watch his Bob Dylan documentaries.
No, not Shine a Light.
I did watch Shine a Light.
Okay.
Shine a Light is I thought it was going to be more of a documentary. It's basically just a concert.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a good concert. They play some songs. I'm not a giant Stones fan. I like them. But I didn't know a lot of the songs in the set list. So, but it was pretty cool. And they have some guest stars.
And I feel like they don't really play their hits either in it.
Yeah.
Shine a Light, right? I
feel like there was a lot of. I don't know if they're deep cuts to me.
Deep cuts, yeah.
I don't know if they're deep cuts to. I guess they probably wouldn't be to a big Stones fan, but Christina Aguilera is in the show. Yeah. She sings on a song. Jack White comes out and sings. Buddy Guy sings and plays, which is cool. But I was. I don't want to say underwhelmed by it, but I expected more of a documentary.
Yeah.
But I watched. So before I watched he's done 2 Dylan documentaries, No Direction Home and the Rolling Thunder Review, I think. Both of those are on Netflix. I watched Don't Look Back, which actually was a rewatch for me. So that was a documentary from the 60s done by D.A. Pennebaker. It chronicles Dylan's time in London in the mid-60s. I like that documentary. It's cool. And again, it was shot back when he was young, so it's pretty neat. No Direction Home, I think, is from 2005. That's another one, kind of like George Harrison's Living in the Material World. It's 3 hours plus. It's really, really long. But I thought that was good. The one thing I'll say about No Direction Home is that they don't. I felt like they didn't interview, or they didn't have a lot of time interviewing Dylan. There's not a lot of time spent with him. They do talk to a lot of other people, but maybe the problem is every time they have Dylan talking, he doesn't say much. He's just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. I just wrote the songs. Like, I'm just, like, he's not that insightful.
He's not like Paul McCartney, who can give like a whole bunch about
right. I mean, and I've seen interviews with Dylan before, and he's very, I don't think modest is the right word, but he just is like, yeah, if you think these are political songs, good for you. I just wrote them. I mean, he's very reticent, when it comes to, he just is tight-lipped. I don't know what it is, but
caged, maybe.
I still thought the documentary was cool, but I did not get a chance to watch the Rolling Thunder review. But I'm excited to watch that one next. But yeah, I Martin Scorsese loves rock music and pop music like that.
He did like Give Me Shelter. He's done a bunch of like those kind of documentaries or concert films and stuff like that.
Yeah, the Last Waltz.
The Last Waltz. Was that about the band?
Yes. Yeah. So and obviously his movies make heavy use of rock and roll and Eric Clapton and stuff like that. Layla, obviously from Goodfellas. So he has an affection for that stuff, and it shows, I think, in the material. So I thought those were cool. So that's what I have been watching. A lot of music.
That's hey, good way to spend time.
Yeah. So let's get into our first JD movie of the week. Tell us a little bit about it.
All right, we're going to go into 1993's Benny and Joon.
Oh, yeah.
Benny, by Aidan Quinn. I was going to ask you beforehand how to say his name. I think it's Aidan Quinn, right?
Aidan.
Benny, played by Aidan Quinn, takes care of his mentally ill sister, Joon, who finds love in an eccentric man who models himself after Buster Keaton in Benny and Joon.
Spaghetti and salad?
In that order?
What happened between you and Mrs. Smale?
She was given the fits of semi-precious metaphors.
The woman is a housekeeper, June, not an English professor.
She moved things.
She said you wandered off? Did you leave the house alone?
Define alone.
You know full well what I'm talking about. Listen, while I'm at work, I can't be worried about whether or not you're knocking another housekeeper into retirement. First there was Mrs. Larkspur.
A woman deeply and hygienically disturbed. Her hair smelled.
But then it was Mrs. Pilts.
Pilts? The answer's in the question. Let's face it, Benjamin. Hiring housekeepers is not your forte.
Oh, yeah? Well, until I do find another housekeeper, you are going to stick close to the house. You understand?
When I wake up, I know what I want to be. Benny and Joon came out in 1993, like I said, is written by Barry Berman and Leslie McNeil, is directed by Jeremiah S. Shechik, I think is a better way to saying that. It's a movie that you haven't seen, but it's also a movie I haven't seen.
Oh.
And I wanted to dive into, Johnny Depp had 2 movies that came out in 93. And so this is one of those guys right there. So I feel like Benny and Joon it's kind of been in the popular zeitgeist. I just feel like everyone of our age has kind of heard about it and knows about it.
Yeah.
But I never spent the time to watch it, and neither of you. So my question for you is, what'd you know about Benny and Joon before you started watching it, and what'd you think of Benny and Joon?
It's interesting that I'd never seen this movie before, because back in the 90s, I was all about Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think back then I was telling people he was my favorite actor.
Like Crybaby Johnny Depp.
Yeah, I love Crybaby, Edward Scissorhands. Yeah. When he started, he didn't have maybe the most auspicious debut, getting sucked into the bed in Nightmare on Elm Street. But he did Nightmare on Elm Street, and he did a sex comedy kind of thing called Private Resort, and then he had a small role in Platoon. Then he did 21 Jump Street. But then he did Crybaby with John Waters. Edward Scissorhands with Tim Burton, and he starts to become a much bigger star. And I really like those movies, both of them. And I feel like those characters are very different.
Yeah.
He does Benny and June. He does What's Eating Gilbert Grape. He does Ed Wood. He does all these Dead Man with Jim Jarmusch. All these different roles that he did in the '90s, and I just thought, man, this guy's super talented. And I mean, I still think he's talented.
And then he did Don Juan DeMarco, and you're like,
no, I like Don Juan DeMarco, or I liked his performance in it. I don't remember honestly what I thought about the movie. I think it was more starting around the 2000s. He started to take more kind of commercial roles. Obviously, he did. He started playing Jack Sparrow, which is good. I mean, he's good, but. He played Tonto and Lone Ranger, which,
interesting.
Let's not do that. But but Mordecai, all these movies that he's come out with since then, half of them I haven't seen. Rum Diary, I haven't seen a lot of that stuff. But I just feel like
he's been Hunter S. Thompson a couple times because he was in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Rum Diary.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm tangenting you really bad.
But I was really all about him in the '90s, and I think honestly, Benny and June might be the only movie from the '90s that I've never seen of his. And I remember people seeing it back in the day and going, "Oh, I think you would like this movie because he plays a Buster Keaton type, and I like Buster Keaton. Who doesn't?" But I just never got around to seeing it. And I wish I never had because I hated this film with a passion.
Interesting.
I loathed this movie.
That's a very strong response for this movie.
Yeah, I hated it. I really hated it. It's one of those.
I don't know why I'm tickled by you saying that.
It's one of those movies that it started pissing me off like in the first 10 or 20 minutes, and from then on, I just was angry the rest of the movie.
Do you remember what it was that pissed you off, or was it just everything?
Everything. I mean, we could get into it, but it just. I just did not like this film at all. Yeah. I felt like I looked up what Barry Berman and Leslie McNeil wrote besides this because I wanted to see if I liked any of their other movies, and I think their filmography is pretty small, and I don't think that I'd seen the other stuff that they did. I think Jeremiah Chechik did Christmas Vacation, which I like. But he didn't write the movie.
Not in the same vibe as this movie.
He didn't write the movie, yeah. But I couldn't stand this movie. To me, it was a paper thin story.
Yeah.
I didn't feel like the movie flowed very well at all. I didn't really like the characters at all, and I didn't understand the characters. I think that's the biggest thing for me. I didn't understand why Johnny Depp wanted to be like Buster Keaton. Yeah. Why did he do these things? Why couldn't he read? Right? Because they say like he can't read.
Write and can't read.
He can't do that. And then
he could read because he was trying to fill out but
they said at one point he can't read.
Well, he's filling out the resume with this bad handwriting, so obviously he could like at least. I thought
the point of that first scene because I want to help, and he like brings him the sign. And the guy gives him an application, and he can like write his name, but then he leaves. And so I thought, well, maybe he can't read it, so he can't write in it. Yeah. But then, does she teach him how to read? Maybe she did. I missed that part because then he comes back and he just gets the job.
Yeah.
But I just didn't get his character. I didn't get her character. Aidan Quinn, it was frustrating because he couldn't communicate. So when he goes out with Julianne Moore, he's just like, oh, I can't go in with you. But he doesn't explain, like, I have to take care of my sister. I have to do it. Or when the girl comes to ask him out after he fixes her car, he's like, I can't.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, why don't you tell her why? So she doesn't just think you think she's ugly or something. Like it. And he's creepy looking to me. He's got huge eyes. He scares me. Like he was the villain in Stakeout. I think he was good for that role because he's a scary looking guy sometimes. Yeah, he's got these big eyes, but this movie, who are these people? That's what I just didn't get it. I know she's mentally ill.
Yeah.
They don't ever say what she has, and I was reading about it afterwards. I think it's supposed to be she's schizophrenic, right?
Yeah.
They don't ever say though what exactly is wrong with her. So because they don't spell it out for you, I understand when it comes to diagnosing somebody who has a mental illness, it can be tricky. Yeah. So maybe in the movie, it's supposed to be like, well, they haven't really put her in a box. Yeah. They haven't designated something for her. But because they don't communicate to the audience, half the time I just thought she was not necessarily mentally ill, but just a pain in the butt to be around. Like at first she just seems very eccentric, right? She's got scuba mask looking thing, and she's trying to direct traffic. And occasionally she's prone to angry outbursts. She throws the tennis paddle. But I was like, I don't know what exactly is wrong with her. The only part of the movie that I actually liked was when they try and run away together and they get on the bus and she starts to have a breakdown. Because I thought that's actually kind of an honest scene. Yeah. And I wish they had that kind of honest emotion earlier in the movie so that you understood, hey, she really is a danger to herself if she doesn't have her medication. I mean, she just seemed like an annoying person for most of the movie until that scene. Where did Johnny Depp come from? Why does he do what he does?
He's that dude's cousin.
Is he telepathic? Because he moved the hat. Like the hat was like going on the ground, like he was moving it with his mind. I think he's a telepath. But they just
He kicked it.
No, he didn't kick. He kicks it a few times, but then there's a scene where the camera's back here. He's over on this side. I'll do it for the camera. He's over on this side. His hat is right here. His hat just moves on its own. It does that twice.
I think someone's off screen just pulling with the string.
They are, but like in the movie, like how is he doing that? He's telepathic. I want to see that movie. I want to see the movie where he's a telepath from like another universe or something, from another planet. But I couldn't stand this movie. I do love Buster Keaton, but the whole thing just irritated the fire to me. They're betting weird things in the poker game. I just felt like Barry Berman and Leslie McNeil came up with a really flimsy story, and they were like, we want to have these real weird, quirky things in it. So they threw in this poker game thing where people are betting people.
But to me, that reminds me a lot of the kicking and screaming thing that we talked about with their game and stuff. Because I mean,
to me, that is more realistic.
I'm saying kicking and screaming is a better movie than this. Yeah. But I do kind of like, I feel like that's something they pulled from real life. Like, and
it may be,
and I think it's an interesting thing.
I thought it was ridiculous.
It didn't bother me, but I think it's interesting. Like these people that don't have a lot of means, and what they're gambling is like just random stuff they found or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I thought it was kind of interesting, but I see what you're saying.
What irritated? I mean, it irritated me that that's what they used to bet, because how do you gauge value in this game? Like Is you shampooing my dog as valuable as my soap on a rope that Dan Hedaya wants to give him or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think...
And they just rattle it off like it's nothing. If you and I sat down to play poker and I had to as we're playing, I have to come up with something, I'd have to sit there and think about it. And they're just like, this. I was like, this is so unrealistic to me.
I feel like we're putting in more thought than maybe the writers did. But
I think so.
They had it written on a piece of paper, and what I'm assuming happens if this was real life would be
they had done it beforehand.
They talked about what they're going to do, and they probably assigned a value, approximate value.
That just seems like so much work. Just use money or use pennies.
They don't have money.
Use something.
All right.
They don't have money.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of money.
They got jobs. They all work for Aidan Quinn, apparently.
Yeah, apparently. Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Okay, so I've gone on forever. What did you think?
No.
Do you agree at all?
I'm just giggling.
Do you agree at all?
You know, I don't have as much spite.
you don't hate it with passion like I do.
This movie didn't draw by ire like it apparently did for you.
You can read. WTF is wrong with her? WTF is wrong with him? Why can he not read? Is he a telepath?
This movie didn't run over some animal that apparently I cared about like it did for you.
This movie killed my dog.
Okay.
Yeah.
No. Okay. How do I feel about this movie? This movie is a tough cookie for this day and age, because I feel like it's hard not to watch this movie and be completely cynical and skeptical about everything.
I mean, that was me.
Because I think a lot of this movie is like based on like magical realism. Because I think the overall story is you have this mentally ill, possibly schizophrenic girl, June, who is magically cured because some other eccentric guy comes into her life. And that is just not realistic. Like that's
no.
Like the whole time I'm watching this, I'm like, this is going to end in a fire, and it almost did. Apparently, originally one of the endings was the house was going to burn down, and I think it would have made the movie
shades of our next movie
a lot better if it did burn down, because it just wasn't. There's not a whole lot of basis to reality, and also like the way they kind of depict her mental illness just doesn't hold up to the way we look at mental illness nowadays and all that kind of stuff and modern thought around it. So it's really hard, just kind of, it's like you gotta understand that what this movie does and place that stuff to the side while you're watching it, because the movie just is not. I don't want to say it's not capable. The movie just is not interested in dealing with this stuff in a very realistic way.
Mm-hmm.
It's more about this kind of magical flight of fancy. Like, to me, it kind of reminds me of like a Big Fish kind of movie, or something where it's like, you're in this kind of elevated world where anything can happen. Where apparently Johnny Depp's character Sam can be a telepath and move hats with his thing, and just because he does a couple of like things he aped from silent films, he can be a big star and make it really big and all that kind of stuff. I did like the dinner roll scene, which I remember not from Charlie Chaplin himself, but from Robert Downey Jr. playing Chaplin in Chaplin, but it's the same kind of thing.
Yeah. Which
is cool. So I'm on the fence with this movie, just because like it's a lot to kind of digest, being in 2020, 2021 and watching this movie from the early 90s that just is kind of naive about everything, right? And at the end of the day too, it's like Benny, her brother, is just like comically naive, and I think this is a little bit more into him not communicating, but he's just like overwhelmed and has no idea on how to take care of his sister whatsoever, or any of this kind of stuff. And it's just like, it's like, okay, well, yeah, I mean, and that for me, that was the most frustrating part, is because I wanted him to be, if we're going to have these flights of fancy with all these different actors and, June and Sam kind of doing their thing, I needed him to be more grounded so he can kind of be the anchor, or be like the rock that we can all focus on and all that kind of stuff. And that didn't really kind of work for me either,
Yeah.
I think the only person that was really realistic is like, CCH Pounder, right? And even then, she's kind of like, okay, you can go out, you can live in an apartment with your, because isn't the apartment they live in like above Julianne Moore's apartment or next door to it or something like that?
They have their own little house, I thought.
But I thought they live in the same building as Julianne Moore.
I don't think so.
Because that's why Aidan Quinn went to go see Julianne Moore. She's on the patio. Then he goes upstairs and leaves like the flowers at the door for June and Sam when they're like making out or whatever, or doing something. I don't know. I feel sorry.
I didn't get that they lived in the same building.
I feel sorry for Julianne Moore if that's the case.
Yeah.
Because it seems like she's in for a lot of like drama from her neighbors. The one thing, the thing, I'll go back to you. The thing I did like though is, it doesn't explain why Sam's into movies, but the fact that he's into movies is cool because we're into movies.
Yeah, I don't mind being into movies, but I just he came out of nowhere. Yeah. I wanted to know a little bit more about him and why he does this. And one thing I thought was he may be kind of eccentric and he may dress weird and whatever, but he's still a good looking guy. Like I find it hard to believe that he doesn't have female attention. I don't know. Again, maybe I'm drilling too deep. I was going to say,
I like that he realized that Julianne Moore was from an actress, and she was in that horror movie. Like
I hated that. Actually.
Oh, you hated that? I thought that was kind of cool.
You said one thing that I mean, you said a lot of things that I agree with, but you said one thing that as I was watching this movie, I wish that they would have explained just a little bit more about what makes her such a danger to herself.
Yeah.
Because you don't really see her kind of being a danger to herself until much, much later. I mean, they talk about, oh, she almost burned the house down, or she did this or whatever. Yeah. But again, most of the things that you see her do are just temper tantrum kind of things, or just her making snide comments. And I'm like, well, she doesn't seem so bad. Seems like she could live on her own.
She's a bitch.
And the other thing, and you mentioned this a minute ago, I wanted to go full-blown kind of surreal with it.
Yeah.
Then I don't care where Johnny Depp comes from. He is a magical character, Bagger Vance or what, I don't know. He comes out of nowhere or maybe she sees him as this magical character because it's a medication that she's taking or something like that, or something with her illness is making her see it. Something, but I would completely embrace the surrealism. Then I believe this, they bet stupid things in their poker game, Deanna Durbin albums as I wrote down, or Julianne Moore was in this schlocky 80s, just you have all these weird Stars Hollow, Gilmore Girls type of characters. The whole town's like that. Something. I would have had a much better time with this movie. But because they play it pretty straight, I'm like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And they're not realistic at all, and they don't fit to me. And they don't. This movie just doesn't work for me one bit. Like when we do our top 5 hated films on this show, this one's going on there for sure. I don't know where it will be.
Yeah.
It'll be there.
Is it worse than Her? Her was rough.
No, I like Her better than this movie.
Yeah.
I don't know about Meatballs. I might hate Meatballs a little more, but
Are they ready for the summer?
Oh God!
Apparently,
no, it's in my head now. Stop it!
I see the Proclaimers on here. Apparently, this basically gave him that #1 hit for "I Would Walk 500 Miles."
Oh, really? Yeah.
They were. I think the Proclaimers are from Australia.
No, they're
British,
Scottish.
Okay,
yeah.
So they were popular in the UK and stuff like that. But what I was reading on IMDb, that song basically brought them to the US or made them a big thing in the US.
And when they haver, you know they're gonna be the man havering with you.
All right. Even though they have kilometers in the UK, I wonder if they had to change the lyrics at all. That's kind of where we stand with it. Andy despises this movie with the passion of 1,000 Suns. I thought it was.
I was gonna say if you haven't seen the movie, congratulations first of all, and if you want to watch a better movie about a brother and sister whose parents I believe they've died, but they've also died in an accident. Watch You Can Count on Me with Laura Linney and Mark Ruffalo. It's a much better film. You'll thank me for it.
All right. Well, we know where we stand. We're the critics on this bad boy.
It's fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 76% fresh, as a matter of fact. 85% according to the audience. Siskel did not like it. He gave it thumbs down. I did not watch the review, so I don't know what his beef was with the movie, but maybe he was similar to me. Roger Ebert did like it. He gave it thumbs up, and Leonard Maltin gives it 3 stars. Wow. So, all right, so this is our first JD movie.
That's right.
I'm spoiling it a little bit, but what did you decide to pair this JD movie with, Johnny Depp?
I think we already said it a little bit. So he had another movie that came out in the same year in 1993. I think this one came out, like, I'm looking at your notes, after this one. So it's good. And it's another movie I haven't seen, but you've seen it? Mm-hmm. And it stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Johnny Depp and Juliette Lewis. And it's What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
So Wednesday we're going to find that out. I mean, we have to know. That's the whole premise of the movie.
Cliffhanger. What's Eating Gilbert Grape?
What is Eating Gilbert Grape?
Find out next time.
Yeah, pretty much. Same bat time, same bat channel. So that was everything you wanted to know about Benny and Joon. If you feel like Andy, let us know. Leave a comment down below. If you feel like me and you're kind of like about it, which maybe is not a good thing, you just let us know. You can leave a comment if you're watching us on YouTube, or if you're listening to us, you can shoot us an email. That email address is realshame@gmail.com. We also answer viewer questions that are sent to us through that email address. So please send us your viewer questions. We need some more, and we would like to do that. Follow us on social media. We're at Real Shame on Instagram. Like, subscribe, share, do all that social media stuff with the episodes, because that really does help spread the word of the show, and we really do appreciate that. And stay tuned next week as we figure out what is eating Gilbert Grape. And
in 2 days, not next week.
Oh, yeah, 2 days, yeah. Figure out what he's eating and then maybe what I'm eating. I don't know. We'll talk about that. We'll see you soon, guys. Bye.